This is a $250,000 a year business, and it's just selling prints. And I'm going to show you exactly how we didn't change the art, but in fact, the business to create such a successful venture. And you're even going to learn the exact framework we used so you can copy it step by step and use it in your business. First, we need to understand where it all started because this matters most and provides much needed context. So when they first started out, they had a basic Squarespace site. Imagine about a third of the screen taken up by a logo and then just an infinite grid of every single thing this business sells. Tons of talent from the artist, real young at this stage, just trying to get his artwork into people who want it, who vibe with it. And there was a little bit of demand, but unfortunately, the business side of things really was the bottleneck. Now, fast forward to now, when we had sort of met them and started to build this venture and started to really formulate what this partnership would look like, we needed them to understand that it wasn't just a simple switch that would make them an overnight success. Every business has one constraint, one bottleneck that limits growth, and if you don't find it, you're going to end up wasting way too much money and time optimizing for the wrong thing. Now, why this is important is because if you don't know the one thing limiting your growth, then you really don't know what you should be working on, and you aren't working on likely the right thing that's actually going to get you to where you want to be. And this is why this is so important to get just cutthroat good at identifying your constraints. Now, just to prove this, I'm going to show you the dashboard as a baseline. This is the last 365 days of sales, and it's about almost nearing 250,000, kind of creeping up into that with around a 5% conversion rate. We actually started on this project using the framework around September of 2025. And the difference it's made, just to put this into context and to show you why this matters, is because once we actually identified the bottleneck, here's the proof. Revenue is up nearly 200% in our window. Conversions sit at around 5.5%. That's up 53% from where they were at prior. And this brand has over 1,000 reviews, meaning that the demand is real. People want this thing. And what's crazy is every single time we go through this process, every single time we talk to somebody who's in product, service, any sort of category, who thinks they know their bottleneck, it's most often not what they think. And if you stick around, you will understand how to become really good at fixing your true problem so you can make a lot of money and grow your business successfully. So, beforehand, let's set a baseline of where we were at, because this is also very important. Now we're jumping into the mix with them and starting to understand where the deficiencies lie. And it boiled down to basically four things. The business was basically one product with a little bit of small add-ons here and there, one page, hope it sells. There's no offer ladder, there's no lifetime value strategy, there's really no disciplined conversion work. We're just kind of trying to throw more people at it, and sometimes sales are really good, sometimes sales are really bad. It just ebbs and flows. With a flat offer, you don't really become competitive. They don't understand why they should choose it, why they should do it now. With low average order volume, the business isn't really quite making enough to actually reinvest in itself. And most importantly, with that, even if we increase how much they spend per sale, we need them to keep coming back. Our high lifetime value, if we don't have a lifetime value system, they're going to buy one thing and they're never going to become repeat customers. And then this one is arguably the most simple to fix, yet often overlooked in these types of things. And this actually applies to any business, is there's no CRO discipline, meaning they're focusing on getting more people to the site, getting more people to the store before they actually fix the real root of the problem, which is we want to get more people who visit our stuff to buy our thing. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to just keep shoving traffic or clicks or visitors into something. Now, the problem is with many businesses, conversely, is they always think traffic is their problem. And what ends up happening in this case is they think ads are going to solve it. They think talking to more people are going to solve it. They think just getting more people and more eyeballs on it is going to fix the business. We never start with traffic. We never start with ads. We never start even with creating content, because most people do this backwards. They start with traffic, but traffic doesn't fix a broken business model. It just amplifies it. If people aren't coming back, if they're not ordering enough, if we're charging too little, there's so many variables that go into this where we need to solve the economics first. We need to make sure that the business model works before we introduce this new growth initiative. And what we want to do is, first and foremost, we're not going to do yes work. Our framework, much like the framework you're going to use after hopefully watching this, follows human psychology. It's sequenced in a way that the exact thing that needs to be fixed that will build compounding results is the first thing we need to focus on. So we focus on conversions, then niche, clarity, the offer, then the traffic, the lifetime value, and only then do we start doing testing. And this is really important because if we don't fix conversions, we're going to get maybe what, 0.5%, 1%, which is what an average e-commerce site does as an example of people buying. Whereas if I go, okay, if I'm sitting at 1% and I get it to 10% conversion rates, I've 10x'd my entire revenue without having to spend more traffic, more time on content. I have to do less to get more. My website literally returns a higher return on investment. When I have a niche, my messaging lands harder. It means that the people who watch it will resonate with it, they vibe with it, they say, hey, that's me, this makes sense. I don't have to convince them as much. And conversely, what I do is I spend less to get more people to the site, or I spend less to even get more people to buy my stuff. And then when the offer is compelling, at that point, more people are likely to buy. There is a reason to do so. There is a reason to act now. Only then do I focus on traffic, aka ads and organic content, because now I understand who I'm talking to, where I'm sending them to. I have a proven model of how to actually get that person to understand my thing, become interested in it, and ultimately buy it. And then after that, my lifetime value is, well, I don't just want them to buy one low ticket item. You don't want to sell one person one bag of dog food and then hope, okay, that's the end of it, which is what most people do. You want them to buy dog food from you forever, and then you want them to buy the chewables, you want them to buy the collar, the accessories, the subscription plan, the cute bandana, all this other stuff in my dog ecosystem. Same thing here. I want them to get not just one print, I want them to buy other things that are going to help enhance their life and make it so that that one customer I have to spend money to acquire is now going to be worth a lot more. And then only finally then do I start doing split testing. At this point, now I'm saying to myself, okay, here's really what I'm focusing on is I need to start making sure I'm getting the highest return from the assets I'm putting out there. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail, but it's very important because so many people often overlook that final step. Now, what we're going to do first, just as I practice what I preach here, is we want to focus on conversions. But why conversions first? Everybody seems to overlook this or overcomplicate it, but I'm just going to simplify it for the purpose of this video. We start with conversion first because it's the cheapest leverage. If you can move conversion even a little, everything downstream increases without buying more traffic. Again, if I can go from 1% of people to 2% of people buying my stuff on the exact same page or from the exact same email or from the exact same piece of social media content, that means I've doubled my revenue without having to do any additional work. That's why this 5.55% conversion rate, as an example, that means that we're going to spend less on ads, do less effort to make content. We're going to have to send less emails if we really want to, or if we send the same amount, if we plug in the same amount of money or time into each one of those, the results compound. It's a force multiplier. More people will buy our stuff for doing less. But again, even if you maintain the same amount of baseline, you get a higher ROI. It's great because it affects everything down the line. After we focused on conversions, our website is great. It says everything it needs to in terms of risk reduction and reviews and why this and why now. We need to start to talk about who's our niche. And this was really important because this young artist, when they were starting out, was really trying to tap into what most people would call their brand voice. But if you want to get less market speak, it's who is this for? Because most of the time people try and focus on building a brand, but they have no idea who their brand's for. And when they look at these huge companies like Apple, Louis Vuitton, these massive artists who make it big, and they say, well, why can they just post a picture of a cup of coffee and seemingly get millions of likes? That is because they started with a niche. They've earned that. And this is where we have to get ruthless about who this is for. Not people who like art, not people who just like visual eye candy, collectors, automotive enthusiasts, gift buyers, Americana, old school cars, nostalgic. That guy out there who, when you go into his man cave that he converted in the back of his garage, who's got a hot rod he's been working on since he's 40 with the the pinstripes or maybe the flames on it, and he's blasting, some of that old school rock, classic rock vibe in it. That's the kind of guy who buys this stuff. And I understand now what it is, what do they want? The messaging becomes obvious and the conversion rises. TLDR, your niche means predictable buyers. It means lower cost to acquire customers, more responses to your marketing, more engagement on your social media, easier to grow your business. And in the long run, once you've reached past $1 million, you can open up more niches. But for now, we don't care about building a brand because a brand is pointless if you're under $1 million. What we care about is who do we serve, what do they want, and how can we make it irresistible for them. Don't focus on trying to be premium, luxury, build a brand. Focus on the people, what they want. That is all that matters. And I can't tell you how many e-commerce founders try and skip this step. You can't skip it. It won't work. You can't pretend to be a big brand. You have to earn that to become a big brand. Now, what we want is what's called an offer ladder. This is very important because usually when you sell something like a low ticket item, especially in the e-commerce field, your goal is not to make a bunch of money on the front end. What happens with like coffee, tea, artwork, widgets, gadgets, little things that are usually under about $50 to $100 is your goal is to make it up in the long run with a customer that you spend usually a lot of, sometimes even break even to acquire them. And then at that point, you start to understand where the money is. You build a ladder, an entry product, a premium product, bundles, a seasonal incentive. The same customer now has multiple ways to buy. So first, here we started with the $0 option, a Facebook group that attracts our target niche where they talk about what they're working on. Bunch of guys talking about their cars, engines, Route 66, road trips, their motorcycles, and we collect their emails when they join the group. After that, we put those into an email campaign, and then we try and take that traffic from the group by posting our content into there as well as publicly. And we set up a campaign for retargeting that says, hey, you engaged with this, you're part of this group. Would you be interested in supporting this artist who also is part of your tribe? For just $20, you can get this calendar. And then what ends up happening is that same customer will move ultimately to, well, you've bought the calendar, it's only going to do one thing for the foreseeable future. Why don't you buy the book? The book is really where this artist shine. Beautiful museum quality, high quality color, sit it on your coffee table in your man cave where all your, friends hang out. Oh, and by the way, instead of just saying, you know what, why don't we get the book and the calendar and the print? Why don't we just give you a bundle with all three of them and you'll save 25% off. And you'll get this for $80 when normally it would be X amount of dollars as an example. So now we're starting to really get into the part where this buyer is spending quite a bit. And then at that point, it's like, hey, instead of every year buying the calendar or every year when we release a new book, why don't we just have you subscribe? Now we're getting passive income, we're getting yearly reoccurring revenue, and after that, it's okay, well, we also have some exclusive stuff you've never seen. Why don't you join our Patreon, where behind the scenes, we actually give things that normally people don't see in the groups. You get exclusive access to A, B, and C. Now we're getting monthly reoccurring revenue, and then for our whales, as they like to say, those top 5% of people who have bought everything and they're spending like crazy, why don't you donate to support the journey? The journey does this. This is where we start to get more emotional and a well-being. In this case, this artist is doing a trip across country, and they're going to be exploring exactly what these people like, that old school Americana, and we need donations to make that trip a reality. And if even one person does that, it's free revenue. It's free money. But take a look if I zoom out. Before I even go further into the next thing, we can take one customer from a Facebook group where they spent nothing to all of these extra sales that never would have happened. Most businesses, why a ladder really matters is most businesses only have one thing to sell. And then they get really frustrated when people don't buy it, so they want to get more things to sell, but they don't really structure any of them. So what happens is usually one of two things. They get into a death spiral because they only have one thing to sell and nobody buys it, and they don't have small things that they can offer or upsells to people who are willing to spend more. So their entire revenue stream is dependent on, for instance, if we were just selling this book, I wouldn't have the calendar, I wouldn't have the group, or even if we had the Patreon, it's like, well, I need fans who have already bought all the other stuff to be interested in buying the future things. So you get in a death spiral because you only have one thing to sell. Or the second one is often that you're trying to sell too many things that are disjointed. So you're not really ever getting good at selling a sequence of events where it's like, it doesn't really make sense to say, okay, I have a car, I have a cheeseburger, and I also have a windbreaker that I want to sell. From most artists, it's usually the same pattern. It's small things, a keychain, a widget, a t-shirt. Then it's usually bigger things, the posters, the puzzles, the bigger pieces of art, the high-end hoodies. And then I go to the show or I go to the event. It's almost always the same pattern: low, medium, high, and in many cases free. If you're a musician, for instance, the free music makes you want to get the t-shirt or join the group. You become a fan, you stream the music, you get the shirt, you go to the show. At the show, they sell you the hoodie. At the hoodie, you actually become a mega fan and you buy the vinyl, and so on. If you don't have that and you're trying to sell all these random things where you don't have cheeseburger, Big Mac, double Big Mac, then nobody understands how these things interlock with one another. Only after our offer and conversion were solid did we actually start to push traffic, because now traffic multiplies everything that works. And every single time people do this, they want to skip straight to ads. I never recommend that. First, the easiest thing to do is to always get an email list. If you have people's emails, those people have usually bought from you or they have inherent interest. Start with that first. Then you can do something like organic content where you create social media videos or pictures, and it aligns with what you're trying to actually broadcast to the world, and you funnel those followers from that actual social media page to your website. If you don't tell them what to do, they won't do it. A lot of people just post vibey pics or videos and they say, oh, okay, hopefully they'll like my brand, and then they'll feel smart enough to go onto my page, then into my bio, and then to the product page. It doesn't work like that. You have to make it super simple. Now, your goal isn't to sell if you're creating organic content, is create value-driven content that gets people interested in buying it. If you're not educating them, if you're not entertaining them, if you're not elevating their life or not engaging with things that they care about by asking them what they want, none of it will matter. It's about them. It's not about you. This is where so many brands mess up social media. And the reality is, once you've solved that problem, only then would I say, okay, well, now we need to do a retargeting campaign. So people who visited the site, didn't buy, didn't fill out a form, let's serve them an ad. You can run that for $5 a day. That's a very easy metric to go off of. It's a very sustainable way to get people back to your store because it often results in the cheapest conversions. If they've taken the initiative to visit your store, to watch a video, to go to your website, retargeting is usually just a reminder that this thing exists. You can distinguish it by having like a separate offer. Hey, you already saw this thing. Are you still interested in this thing? It's kind of like an abandoned cart email, but for the platforms you're marketing on. And only then, after I have solved all three of those, would I recommend actually running ads, because so many times businesses go straight to ads. Ads are going to either waste an exorbitant amount of your time and money because you haven't figured out your offer, your conversion structure, or if you're really good at this and you've started to, act like a smart CEO and say, perfect, my offer, my conversion, my traffic, all of this stuff, my social media, my email list, my retargeting, I've kind of seen what works and I've done so for a very minimal amount of budget. You just take that and it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. It multiplies what already works. Now, what we want to understand is there's only three stages when people are ultimately going to buy your stuff. The strangers is the smallest ask. I want them to join the Facebook group, fill out my lead magnet, give me their email, do something, buy a thing that's free, you just pay for shipping. Smallest ask when you're starting off. Engaged is the first purchase. Once they've actually done that, then you need to start to ascend them up to past purchase, which is where you do the upsell. If you can get somebody in the engagement state, like a warm lead, and they land on your traffic or they land on your website to that product page, that's the part where you can take somebody. For instance, what we did, I'll just break this down with them, is strangers would join the Facebook group. We would get their emails. We would engage with them with email marketing, and we would get them to buy the calendar. After they bought the calendar, then we would continually drip them campaigns to buy the book, to join the, the bundles, to the Patreon, and so on and so forth. So smallest ask usually for strangers, biggest ask going to be for only people who have shown the most initiative. If you want to think about it more simply, if they haven't bought from you, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. If they bought 5 things from you already, you just need to keep asking them to buy more things forever. They're likely to do so. Now, this is where we want to start split testing. If we start running ads without doing this, it becomes a game of chance. I'm willing to bet that as you're watching this video, you don't have $500 million of venture capitalist and investor funding to throw at ads and just pretend you know what you're doing forever. And please do not hire an agency at this point, because they are just going to hopefully either be a good 1% agency and actually fix your creative and figure out your hooks and figure out your offer and figure out your landing page. But if they're like 99% of other marketing or social media marketing agencies, they're just going to run ads and tell you, look at all the impressions we got, look at all the clicks we got, look at how much the ads are showing in people's feeds. Those are vanity metrics. That's why we are smart and we split test. So what we did is one variable at a time. Creative, headline, offer framing. This is how you scale without guessing. And I'm in this visual as an example. Let's say we have 3 different ads. They're all structured exactly the same video, same content, same CTA, except we're testing the hook. So the text they see at the very beginning of the ad, our hook, we could change in all 3 of them. And I'll tell you now, one of those hooks, let's say in this case, Media 3 is the winner. Let's say Media 3, in this case, actually we did this, and the real world result was we would take a video copy of something that was shot with the videographer, and we tested 3 different opener hooks. The worst one was around 2.5 return on ad spend, put $1 in, get $2.5 out. While the one that we used for, I believe it was Media 5, had a 12x return on investment. I can literally put more money and get a higher result, and all I changed was the hook. Why this is important is because we only want to test one variable at a time. It's really important that we're not testing all these different things and we're just trying to guess. So many people say one of 2 things, which is you need more creative diversity. So they pump a bunch of creatives into a campaign, and suddenly the tool in the campaign, the AI sequencing, is like, I'm just going to throw money at whatever I think works. And it starts spending way too much money on an ad that's actually not very profitable. Or what ends up happening is you get really disjointed because you can't really tell what works. You can't look back and say, okay, we should probably make more ads like this because this one made a lot of money. Now, what are the results from this? Just to recap, why this is all so important is that they saw a nearly 200% jump in revenue, a 250,000 plus a year run rate, and this is growing even more, and a 5.6, nearly 5.6 conversion rate. That sequence drove the lift, a nearly 200% up in our period, and a run rate, meaning 250K a year, without changing the art. All we did was just change the sequence of event. But if you don't know what you need to change in the sequence of events, it becomes really hard to actually follow and grow. Now, what you need to do is to find your bottleneck. You need to find your constraint. This is the big takeaway that I really hope you get from this video, is that the lesson isn't just sell prints, run more ads, try and be this vibey brand, try and build a brand. None of that matters right now. If you're doing $5 million a year, sure, be vibey, be a brand, focus on aesthetics. Nothing matters except you need to find the constraint. Fix that first, then scale. Most businesses are consistently stuck because they're working on the wrong lever. Now, if you don't know what you need to work on, if you don't know what the lever is, you're just going to go around in circles. You can find the constraint in 45 seconds for free by visiting the link in the pinned comment or the description. Only if you want some clarity, go to that website, run the business constraint finder. It'll show you where the bottleneck is that's actually limiting your growth. Either it's your offer conversion, traffic retention, or monetization, or maybe even something else. fix that, and everything else moves. At this point, the next path is clear. Find the bottleneck and fix it, and then scale. It's as simple as that. If you want more breakdowns like this as well, be sure to subscribe. I put a video out every single week. Next week, I will show you as well how to apply this constraint to another method of your business, in this case, websites, and you will be able to emulate it as well. But until then, that's all I got, and I'll see you next time.